Hey, how's it going? I'm Not, and I made this spreadsheet of all the cards you probably do not want to craft in Gwent. This time around we're gonna look at all the Nilfgaard cards. Also keep in mind, the rules, how a card gets onto my list are explained in the videos before and also in this spreadsheet. And also, since we last spoke, Master Mirror hit, the expansion came out and, well, all the Master Mirror cards that are not worth crafting are not on the list yet, because the meta still has to settle. We still have to find out which cards are really not worth crafting. And also, many of the cards on the list are subject to change, so just stay tuned. Keep coming back to the spreadsheet. I'll post updates when necessary and when possible. So, with that being said, let's jump right into it. With a different scene? Alright, let's go. The first Nilfgaard card that is just not worth crafting would be Leo Bonhart. He's barely a better Geralt. He can destroy an enemy unit with 9 or more power. He's 3 power for 10 provision, which makes him basically Geralt, but also he has this bonus condition of being able to destroy an enemy witcher. Well, which enemy witchers are in the meta? Maybe Igni, that's a 2-point card. Maybe Vanilla Geralt, if you're on lower ranks, but then he's a 6 for 10. Yeah, he's really not worth crafting. He's a legendary card, so do you really want to spend all those scraps, all those meteorite powders for Leo Bonhart if you already have Geralt of Rivia, who basically does the same thing, and this just doesn't matter right now. And not in this meta, this doesn't matter. Moving on, Vivienne de Tabry. She can set a unit's power to its provision cost. When she came out with the Crimson Curse expansion, she actually was played quite a bit, together with Roach maybe, setting a 3-point card to something like 9 or 10 provision. I don't remember if Roach was already nerfed back then, making her a 10 for 10. Right now Nilfgaard just has better combo potential, has better units that synergize with its decks more. Vivienne right now just plays into toll removal, just plays into poison, into resets, into Morgwag, into Turkvi, who came out with Master Mirror. So she gives you points, but she makes you quite vulnerable, and she also requires you to play potentially suboptimal cards, just units that have to be low power and high provision. Also, she had back then this bonus effect of being able to destroy a Shoop Knight, an 8-point token with 0 provisions, but right now Shoop Knight is a doomed unit, so he has a status making him a prime target for Vincent van Molehem. So yeah, and he synergizes with his decks, being able to also trigger Masquerade Ball just like Vivienne, but he just fits better into the vampire decks, into the Nilfgaard poison decks. So yeah, Vivienne, just not worth it anymore, was power crept by better cards with better effects that synergize more with decks that are played right now. Now, Dodric Le Mertz. Also a card that had Shoop synergy. He was played in lockdown decks with Shoop, giving you some extra mulligans, basically. Another chance to draw Shoop if you haven't already, and also a chance to put all your 4 provision cards at the bottom of your deck. But right now decks do have lots of consistency options that they didn't have back when Syndicate came out and back when this Shoop lockdown deck played Dodric. We now have, for example, War Council, we have Roderick. So yeah, Dordrick isn't really needed anymore. Nilfgaard should Radea can basically guarantee to draw the tools, all of them actually, if they have a bit of luck maybe. But Dordrick is just not really worth it anymore. Those extra mulligans are not really needed right now to guarantee the consistency that Lockdown, for example, needs, and there's actually no other deck that ever played Dordrick, so not worth crafting, especially for a legendary card. Now, Milton de Pezan, to pronounce it in a more Frenchy way. He basically profits from killing spies. Right now, with Master Mirror, spies became a bigger thing for Nilfgaard. I think, like, most of the Nilfgaard decks played currently at the beginning of Master Mirror are spy decks, but I have not seen a single one of them play Milton or Palmerin, but we'll get to that a bit later. Now, he's best case a 10 for 8, which just isn't really that good if you remember that you have to damage adjacent enemy units too. And there's not always adjacent enemy units to a spy. And with the new spy that came out with Master Mirror, with the Mage Infiltrator, that's basically the same effect, but on a much cheaper card that also has a bit of synergy by synergizing with cards that synergize with spine cards. Now, Milton, if he is basically made for spy decks and spy decks don't play him, he's just not good enough, just not worth crafting right now. And a bit inconvenient, but a bit unconventional, but let's just jump directly to Palmerin, because he and Milton are basically the Nilfgaard dream couple. Well, Cooper might be a bit mad, but Palmerin is a pretty crappy card. You don't want to give adjacent and allied units shields, because if they stack around enough to still be around when you give them a shield, they probably are not going to get removed in the next turn or so. Anyway, so his shields just aren't worth it, and dealing 2 damage at provision cost, being a 7 for 7, just isn't worth it. Nilfgaard doesn't need 2 points of damage if they have, for example, the Imperial Enforcers, which can dish out lots and lots of damage in a Nilfgaard spying deck. So Palmerin, not really worth it, as well as Milton, who we've looked at just a couple moments before. Now, moving on, Fringilla Vigo. Damage an enemy unit by 2, increase the number of targets by 1 for each adjacent mage, so if she's next to 2 mages, basically I'm Fringilla and there's 2 mages besides me, she'll deal 2 damage 3 times. Being basically a bit of a better Myrkte Bracke. Let's look at her. Perfect. Also a 4 for 8, but she's much more consistent in a 2-target strategy, so she'll have no trouble destroying the Syndicate Defender, for example. Fringilla will need some setup for that scenario. Also, Nilfgaard just doesn't have a mage archetype right now. There's really no reason to pack your deck full of mages. I actually don't... Let's look at all the mages that Nilfgaard has available. Nilfgaard plays Triss, Radea maybe. Actually, there's a couple of mages, but they don't give you enough to really build a synergistic deck out of them. All of them are, actually most of them are part of different decks. We have a bit of mill support, a bit of double ball support in Asire, assimilate support in Artorias. So yeah, maybe Fringilla Vigo is in some scenarios good points per provision, but not only having to set up mages on your side, but also having to have targets that are worth hitting just makes her not really worth crafting it, not really worth playing. False Ciri. She used to be pretty good when she was able to destroy artifacts. But now the movement just comes cheaper in the form of Straits of Spala, being a 4 for 5, so it's a bit of an easier attack option than False Ciri, who's a bit more expensive. And also False Ciri now supports an agent archetype that really isn't there. Let's look at all the agents like we did with the mages. Now, which one of them do you want to boost by 3 the turn after you played them? Well, first of all, there's a couple of disloyal units, so don't wanna boost them. False Ciri can boost spies too. Can boost disloyal agents too, but that wouldn't be that good. Now we have a couple of order units. Vatier, Maral, Stefan. But if they already survive the turn, you don't need to boost them anymore. You just trigger their order ability. You just don't wait it out. There's not really an agent that you want to buff, especially... yeah. No agents you want to boost, especially as boosting just plays into toll removal right now, making it a bit of a risky play if your deck otherwise, like Nilfgaard sometimes does, just doesn't have that many toll units. So False Ciri, an 8 for 7 with the condition of also having an agent in that round just doesn't make her that good, and her movability just isn't really worth it. The added flexibility just made her movability bad points for provisions. Now, Kalayak Diffrin, basically power crept out of existence by Siegfried, who came out with Master Mirror. Let's look at Siegfried of Danel. He purifies all other units for literally the same points and the same provisions. Also, Kalayak isn't able to purify enemy units, isn't able to purify any Veils, any defenders, so apart from his aristocrat tag, there's not really anything in him that makes him worth crafting. And actually, not a single ball or double ball deck played Kalayak Diffrin in the last couple of months, so he just wasn't played and will not be played if Siegfried becomes viable because of the meta. Palmerin, we've already talked about him. Moving on to Vicovaro Novice. He's basically an extra mulligan with the downside that he places the card from your hand at the top of your deck. He might be kind of usable in combination with Afan, but if you already have drawn Afan, you don't want to attack Vicovaro Novice just for the fringe case that you have drawn your Afan. And having to draw the card you mulliganed in the next round just makes Vicovaro Novice a bit bad. Yeah, he's not really viable as a mulligan, and there's not really a place for him apart from countering Cynthia. I need to type it here. Yeah. You can counter Cynthia, you can mulligan away a Guardian, but Cynthia also not really played that much, but actually a bit of a interesting card. But yeah, Vicovaro Novice not that good. Standard Bearer. Currently there's no seasonal modes that are boost heavy, so the Standard Bearer is not even that good in a seasonal mode. You have to rely on an opponent playing boost heavy. With, for example, Lipidex, you barely get any boosted enemy units. Having to rely on boosts on your enemy's plays makes this card pretty bad. So yeah, just doesn't fit Nilfgaard's current playstyle. You'd rather just do a row reset like Erden instead of a Standard Bearer. Fire Scorpion. Used to be pretty good with Portal when they were 3 points and 4 provisions when you were able to pull them with Portal, but now they were nerfed to 5 provisions, making them pretty bad value. Also, you already have Hefty Helge, which is enough setup on our own. Having to wait 1 or 2 turns to set up your Fire Scorpions before you play your tactic cards is not that good. Also, in the place of Fire Scorpions, you oftentimes, as Nilfgaard, play... what's their name? Vinendal Elites. Also, 5 provisions, words are hard, but they have guaranteed value and you do not have to wait out the whole round until all your tactics see play. Menagerie Keeper, also a tactic synergizing card which doesn't see much play. If you already play tactics, you want to remove, you want to control, you do not want to wait 2 turns until your bleeding ticks, you do not want to play just a boring 3, 4, 5 unit, especially if you're in Slave 6, then you do not have the provisions to play that many 5 provision units. You wanna fill your cheap provision slots with tactic cards, making Menagerie Keeper just not that synergistic in its supposed deck. Ointment. Healing soldiers. First of all, not that useful as you have to rely on your enemy playing into your strategy. Also, boosting just isn't that good. Maybe if Ointment boosted by 5 or gave Veil additionally, it would see some play, but right now Ointment just doesn't fit Nilfgaard's playstyle. Soldier decks just wanna spam soldiers, have lots and lots of units, instead of healing their soldiers just to keep them alive for whatever reason. Yeah, Ointment not really worth it. Van Moorlehem Servant is one of those cards with just pretty bad timing. You have to wait a couple of turns until you have set up lots of enemy units with statuses, and then you'll have to guarantee that your round goes long enough that your vitality still ticks through. So, making Van Moorlehem Servant a mid-round 3 round in a very long round 3 to get its optimal value just makes this card pretty bad. I've never seen her played, and I don't see her being played in the near future just because the timing for it is pretty unfortunate. And also in a long round 3, Nilfgaard just doesn't want to play that many bronze cards, not that many 4 provision cards, making it just mulligan fodder if you ever were to draw her in a long round 3. Now, Nausicaa Brigade. Also relying on enemies, on your opponent to boost their units isn't that reliable of a strategy. Too often Nausicaa Brigade just won't be able to damage any card. I believe that just like the Pirate Captain in Skellige, the Nausicaa Brigade needs an alternate condition of damaging a enemy unit by 1 if it's boosted, damage it by 3, this slight rework could make Nausicaa Brigade slightly more viable, slightly more worth considering, but it's just not worth it if Nilfgaard has better control options right now. Moving on, Combat Engineer. Also a 4 provision card. Also conditionally a 6-point card, but does Nilfgaard play artifacts apart from Masquerade Ball? I don't think so, and if you already play Masquerade Ball, you have units that synergize much better with it. Just from the fact that it's an artifact, you do not want to have Combat Engineers in your deck. Also, playing tall units yourself when there's just no reason to Nilfgaard isn't worth it. Combat Engineer has no synergy with other Nilfgaard cards, so yeah, don't put them in your decks. Now, Artfane Light Cavalry is the last card in this video. It's able to deal up to 4 damage to an enemy unit if it has armor. Otherwise it's just a 4/4/4. Yeah, not that great stats. Also, you have the Highwayman, which do its job pretty much. Yeah. Here they are. Highwaymen do its job pretty much just as well, with a higher base power. They might be a bit better in the case of a brick. Also, they have some armor themselves, so they are slightly protected. I don't see how you would ever want to play Artfane Light Cavalry in any of your decks, even in the armor-heavy meta. Just after Iron Judgment released, they weren't played that much. So yeah. Also, don't put them in your deck. Now, let's get back to... yeah. Let's get back to the list. Next up we have the Northern Realms. A video about all those cards you see there, and maybe some additions, maybe some outtakes, depending on how the meta develops, are coming next week. Yeah, new videos mostly every Sunday, yeah, mostly every Sunday, at least I try to. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye!